Florida State's offensive injury list, Duce Robinson included, is likely to be a problem against Stanford.
You are Locked On Seminoles, your daily podcast on the Florida State Seminoles. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Back into Locked On Seminoles. I am your host, Brian Smith, longtime college football recruiting analyst. Thank you for making Locked On Seminoles a part of your day, each and every day here on the Locked On Podcast Network. We are brought to you by our friends at Mazda. Like our players, we sweat every detail because when you make every move count, pulling off the unexpected is only the beginning. Stay tuned later for highlights in this week's Moving the Game Forward. Mazda, move and be moved. Today's show, we're going to have a mailbag. We have a lot of people with comments. My reaction show is of roughly 400 people, a little over, that have commented. It is quite the commentary. And some of those comments, along with some of them from X, etc., we're going to discuss at the end of the show. It's a very broad swath, but you might have guessed it. The coaching has come into question quite a bit with Florida State. We're also going to be talking about Mike Norvell. What would have to happen for Florida State to really get rid of him after the end of this season? That is in the middle of the show. But to begin, it is a mass unit for Florida State on the injury front on the offensive side of the ball. It's ridiculous. I'm curious to see how Norvell and his staff attack this week. You've got a road game at Stanford. So what should you do? I'm just going to ask this and I'm going to give my take. Would you try to push some guys back into the lineup if they're just banged up, or would you let them get all the way healthy? Because quite frankly, there's no nice way to say this. Stanford stinks. That's a bad football program. They've got an interim head coach. You should beat them, but you want to be in rhythm too. What would you do? For me, I look at it from the perspective of it's time for some young players to step up. Guys that can't play, that's obvious. But if it's close, and unless it's Tommy, like you need Tommy in the lineup, I get it. Everybody else, I would probably rest them. The reason, again, if you can't beat Stanford with some of your very talented young players, then it's not going to work anyway. That's on Norvell. That's on everybody else in that locker room, the players. They've got a ton of skill players that are talented, a ton. And that's where I'll describe here in a second the bulk of the injuries. Micah Pettis aside, that is a problem because he's an offensive tackle. The vast majority of players for Florida State's injured list right now are offensive skill guys. So let's break that down. Number one, what happened to Rodell Williams? We thought he was going to play against Miami, played like 4 snaps. Then we don't see him against Pittsburgh. Like, if there's any doubt to my comment that I make constantly about coaches lying about injuries, Florida State is just about as bad as any program in the country. They hide things, they maneuver things, coach speak, just bold-faced lie. Don't believe any injury report. Where's Rodell? Do we really know what's going on? Or are they just hiding it? How do you want to put it? I don't think he's healthy. Cam Davis, Sam Singleton, not really sure what's going on as far as the timelines there, but that's still not good. Those are 2 good football players you're not going to get. Micah Pettis, obviously he did not play against Pitt. He was out for much of the game against Miami. We'll see when he could go, but that's arguably Florida State's best offensive lineman, and he's an offensive tackle. Premium position where Florida State is very thin on depth that is ready. They got some talent in the underclassmen ranks, but they're not quite ready. They need him back desperately. Moving to the skill spots, where's Score White? Did we really hear anything about that? Of course we didn't. It's another lie from the coaching staff in some way, shape, or form. Yes, this is a direct shot at Norvell, but it is what it is. Randy Pittman was a late scratch. That's unfortunate. He got banged up in warm-ups. He was at least on the sidelines rooting for his teammates in an FSU jersey. It is what it is. But then there's also the point with, I think, an injury that took place during the game. I don't know for sure. I mean, everybody's beat up in the middle of the season to a certain degree. And this is where it gets very scary. For the game, and sacks in the college level count against rushing totals, which is dumb. But Castellanos had 12 yards rushing on 8 carries. Sacks, the ball falls on the ground, the quarterback falls on, anything like that. It's a rush against you, yada, yada, yada. First few plays of the game and in the first half, they had some design runs. Matter of fact, first play of the game, Tommy took off. But the play where he ran the football inside the 10, it was either first or second drive. I can't remember which. He got walloped pretty good. And when he got up, it was immediately obvious. One of his, I forget if it was right or left leg, he got banged up. It's amazing how they didn't call run plays really after that. It was very limited. They had no choice. But on the flip side, this is the danger of any offense that runs the quarterback, Rich Rod's offense, Gus's offense, etc. When your primary passer, and there's a definitive line between the first and the second guy at quarterback, and there is at Florida State, when he gets banged up and you're a running offense with a mobile quarterback, things can go south. Florida State's offense wasn't the same there. And then on top of that, as we all know, Duce Robinson had some kind of leg injury too on the last drive of the first half, the one where Landon Thomas caught the pass from Duce, where he rolled left and probably shouldn't have thrown it, but ended up being a touchdown to Landon Thomas. He got injured, went to the locker room, never returned. That doesn't look good. And again, I have zero faith we're going to get any valuable information throughout this week or at any point while Mike Norvell's in Tallahassee about an injury, but especially to a future NFL wide receiver. Here are my concerns. They need him back post-haste because they don't have anybody else like, really, there aren't very many guys like Duce in college football. I mean, he's 6'6". He's a big guy. He is a mismatch. And while he only had 2 receptions for 10 yards, it was, not even a full half of a game. There's not much you can do to replace him in the lineup. And they got plenty of big guys. I'll go through the snap counts in a second for the offensive skill guys. But they can't replace him. Even though it's Stanford this week and they're giving up, you ready for this? 30.2 points per game. Stanford stinks. They are awful. When you lose a guy that's probably going to score a touchdown, if not 2 against a defense like that, they're just terrible. Then that game can become close. And if you get into a close game on the road, across the country, against a team that has nothing to lose, again, they got an interim head coach, the whole 9, anything's possible. And on top of it, is Squirrel going to play? Well, Wayne only had, McCoy, he only had 1 catch for 15 yards. That surprised me. Now, Makai Danzy went off. 7 catches for 133 yards and 2 scores. He's a special player. But Stanford, if Duce isn't in the game, they're going to put 3 guys on him. Somebody else is going to have to beat him. By the way, are we 100% sure Randy Pittman's going to play? Florida State is just snake bitten right now at the offensive skill spots. So hopefully 2 or 3 or not, maybe even 4 guys get back. But overall, the 2 that I'm most concerned about are Castellanos, because he's your quarterback. That's straightforward. And secondarily, Duce. He changes every single defensive play call throughout a game. When he's in the contest, you have to be ready or suffer the consequences of deep passes. Even though he only had 2 catches for 10 yards, he had multiple pass interferences he's drawn because DBs just can't handle it. He's too darn big to go along with his speed and his acumen just as a pass receiver. Stanford doesn't have anybody to handle him. You'd probably see cover 2, cover 4, and cover 3 and run the ball all day on them so they can handle Duce and Makai Danzy. If you only have one of them, and if for whatever reason McCoy, and I don't know if this is the case, but if McCoy's not on the same page with Tommy Castellanos, again, he only had 1 catch. I was a little surprised by that. That's a problem. Makai eventually is just going to get double and triple teamed so much, it's going to be difficult to throw the ball in a traditional fashion. They've got to get Duce back. If he's out for an extended time, this could be a serious, serious problem. When we come back, there have been a lot of comments, and I'll get into it in the mailbag as well at the end of the show, about Norvell being fired. I want to discuss not just with Norvell, but do a comparison. What's going on in Happy Valley also impacts Florida State. Their contracts, James Franklin, Mike Norvell, are almost linear. They are almost exactly the same. So why is Penn State pulling the plug and Florida State not? What's the deal with that? That is next here on Locked On Seminoles. Today's show is brought to you by our friends at Mazda's Moving the Game Forward. For those who believe it's not just about playing the game, it's about redefining it. There are moments that do more than just put points on the board. They move crowds, move culture, and keep the game moving forward. For Florida State, let's talk about Makai Danzy. 7 catches for 133 yards and 2 touchdowns this past weekend against Pitt. He's a phenom in terms of a track athlete. He's sub 44 or right around 44. I forget the exact number, but 44.38, I believe it is, in the 400 meters. So the speed is there. But he has turned that into being a game-breaking wide receiver after playing running back his whole career. It's an incredible transformation, and every time the ball goes up to him, fans are excited, and they should be. When you follow what moves you, the unexpected is only the beginning, and just like that, there's more to every highlight. There's more to a Mazda vehicle. Mazda, move and be moved. Thank you once again for making Locked On Seminoles a part of your day, each and every day here on the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm Brian Smith. Please like and subscribe if you have not already. Become an everydayer as we go through this crazy journey with Florida State football and then into basketball, baseball, and everything else as we get into the winter. But let's talk about the comparison situation between Penn State and Florida State. I'm sure you've heard by now, James Franklin has been relieved of his duties by the Penn State Nittany Lions administration. Why does that matter? Many reasons. Number one, it's just fascinating with college football how this works. A couple of weeks ago, they were trying to challenge for the number one spot in all of college football, had a home game and a whiteout against Oregon that they lost in overtime, get beat by UCLA, get beat by Northwestern, he's out. That's it. So why is it so different at Penn State? There are several different ways you could look at it, but these programs mirror each other in many different facets. Penn State has a massive stadium construction going on, maybe even more expensive than the one at Doak Campbell in Tallahassee. The contract for Franklin is a little over $49 million that they owe him in some capacity. Very similar to Mike Norvell. But why did they get rid of him and Norvell's still around? What's the difference? Penn State's got more money. That's really what this is. Until otherwise proven, they just have the money. As I've said many times on this show, and I keep getting people asking me, whether it's on X, whether it's on YouTube, whether it's on TikTok, it's the same thing. It's money. The main reason that Mike Norvell is still employed and is still living in Tallahassee is because of money. He would not be here. I'm just trying to answer this across the board. For Lord only knows how many times I've been asked this. I've even had people say, well, with the new ACC money, they should be able to. It's not that simple. It's not only Norvell. It's all the assistants they just hired. It's hiring a new coach. Who are you going to hire? Getting a search firm. Trying to also, this is where it doesn't mirror each other with Penn State. Penn State's happy in the Big Ten. They're set. Florida State's got to look to their future and get out of the Atlantic Coast Conference. That is the one difference. All of this is money. And barring something that I do not know about, Florida State, this surprises me, doesn't have enough big boosters, at least from what I know right now, ready to pony up to get rid of him. And again, I get it. That is an insane amount of money, but there's no way you're going to get around it. If he's leaving, he's getting paid. That is the difference. So just for fun, assuming he was gone, this is just 100% conjecture from this point until the next break that I'm going to talk about. Who would I want at Florida State if it did happen? Again, you got to remember, everything starts and ends with money. Because if you're paying a bunch on the front end, that doesn't help you with the next guy. I don't think there's much chance for a home run hire, meaning like a lateral move, a Mike Elko or something like that. They don't have enough money for it. It would have to be an up-and-comer, probably a coordinator. That's probably not going to make a lot of FSU fans happy. But again, what's the word? M-O-N-E-Y. That's just a situation. I would love to be wrong on that, and I'd love to get a text message from somebody right now telling me that things have changed. Not seeing my phone light up. So, Will Stein, the offense coordinator at Oregon, definitely a possibility. The defense coordinator or the offense coordinator at Indiana. Before you say Signetti, that's not going to happen. He's a northern guy. He's not a fit. If you want to go look at the South or somebody has ties to the South, there are different possibilities. Dan Lanning, very unlikely, although I'm sure people would say, oh, he coached at Bama and Georgia. Yeah. But at Oregon, he's got all the money in the world. And he's got all the power in the world. Doubt he's going to leave that unless it is for Georgia, Alabama, or maybe if Brian Kelly got fired at LSU, he's going to stick at Oregon. He's got an easy gig. Looking around the schools at the SEC, is there a possibility? Maybe, but I doubt it. It still would probably be a coordinator. This is a hard business to hire, quote unquote, a coach that can win and one that boosters are happy with and will donate. That last word again is still money. Everything is money. So is there another coordinator or two or three? Possibly. I could see that. Forget the guy's name. The head coach at Tulane's a good coach. That's a possibility. G.J. Kinney at Texas State. He's an East Texas guy, but he's coached at UCF. He's a good guy. I've been around him. Maybe somebody like that. But bottom line, right now, if Florida State got rid of Norvell in any circumstance, or if he left, would they have the money to go out and make a splash hire like an Elko, a Marcus Freeman, or somebody like that? Not likely. This is a really fascinating situation. And I'll admit it, I'm one of the first that say, get rid of Norvell. I've been beating on that drum probably longer than anybody. When they lost their second game last year, I said, this team is going to win 2 or 3 games. I said that on ACC Network or the ACC, Locked On ACC. And everybody, oh, you're crazy, Brian. No, they're going to win 2 or 3 games. They won 2. I have a pretty good pulse of the team. And right now, this team, I think, is trending back towards 6 because the injuries are just ridiculous. That's more bad luck than anything, but it is what it is. Would they fire him? Again, I don't see it, but if they did, Stein, maybe one of the up-and-comers from the G5 level, something like that is the likely possibility. Alex Golish, certainly a candidate at USF, but I don't see that splash hire that the vast majority of fans in Florida State kind of fits into this with any fan base. They expect to get the number one guy, the splash hire, and somebody to make a lateral move. It is very rare that happens in college football. It's only happened 4 or 5 times in the last 50 years of college football, literally. So with that being stated, Florida State is in a tough spot because if they fall off this year to the point where it's really bad and they're just kind of fighting for a bowl, I'm curious to see what the FSU administration does because money talks, but the fan base might just pull out their wallets and say, see this? It's going back in my pocket until the coaches changed. It is what it is. Really tough to beat the Florida State administration right now because the money situation is not where it needs to be. When we come back, we're going to discuss a little bit of the mailbag. A lot of people speaking of the coaching situation. I barely even dove into the comments on the YouTube page. It's insane how many people have their thoughts about the coaching staff, whether it's Mike Norvell, Tony White, etc. That is next here on Locked On Seminoles. Today's show is brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel has an offer you don't want to miss. Right now, new customers can bet $5, and you get $300 in bonus bets if you win that bet. That's right. Pick a bet, put down $5, and if it hits, you'll unlock $300 to use across the FanDuel app. You can do it with just about anything you want on the app. Over-unders, money line, player props, traditional point spreads for games. You can pick the AFC champion, anything you want relating to the NFL or anything else with FanDuel. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today and to get started. We are also brought to you by Monarch Money. Most people can't name all their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's 401ks, properties, or investments. And when you don't have the full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. That is why there is Monarch Money. It's an all-in-one personal financial tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or on your phone. Monarch is built for people with busy lives. If you put off organizing your finances, Monarch is for you. Monarch does the heavy lifting for you. You can link all your accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, get smart categorization of your spending, and finally feel in control of your money without ever touching a spreadsheet. So the bottom line here, everything in one place, so it's more convenient, more succinct, and easier for you to save cash in the long run. Don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at modernmoney.com for your first year. That's 50% off your first year at modernmoney.com with code LOCKEDONCollege. It is time for a little mailbag and some people sounding off. This will not be, as they say, very shy. As most Florida State fans know, they're very passionate about their favorite university, about their favorite football team, and the following are, for the most part, pretty blunt. I could have went with over 100 comments really easy. Of course, the show's not long enough to do that, and it was just incredible how many there were. So this is kind of random. Got one post from X and then a whole bunch from the YouTube page, but here we go. Warren Hester. We aren't in the top 16 teams anymore. We can't live off balanced success. We are not relevant. We got big problems. Right now, they're not in the top 16, but it can flip really quick. And let me give you an example. No, a couple, actually. When Bama hired Saban, didn't take long. Third year, they won the national title, and they came really close his second year. When Florida State started falling off and then Jimbo took over, it was just time for Bowden. Jimbo took over a few years later. They won the national title. LSU under Saban. It was his fourth year. They won the national title. Look at Ohio State. When Urban left, everybody was like, don't know. Ryan Day, it took him a little while, but he got a national title. It can happen if you have the right coach put into place. Right now, it's pretty obvious Florida State does not, but that doesn't mean the next head coaching hire can't change the whole situation. So keep that in mind. Fit is important, how the boosters are operating, who the AD is, getting the right quarterback. There's a lot of little things, but Florida State will be back in the national title hunt sooner rather than later. Seminoles 91. The linebackers have zero, and I mean zero, football acumen. It's painful watching the defense. BMAC said it best. It's either coaches are allowing it or players are undisciplined. It's one thing for us to not have talent, but guys just seem aligned horribly and not knowing what to do at times. Their zone coverage shows this so horribly. I talked about that extensively on the Sunday show. Florida State's linebackers in one-on-one situations, especially Herring, they try to expose him. He can't cover. He's not fast enough. He's a good hitter. He's good in the box, but he's just not good enough in space to run with some of those smaller guys like Pitt had. And that's just going to be a problem for him forever. So Florida State's got to come up with something to help them. And as I said on Sunday's show, I think on passing downs, they should move at least one guy, even if it's a backup safety, into the box, or move one to safety, one of the starting safeties down the box, something, so they add more speed to the field because they can't get it done. Jerry Esteinza from X. Unfortunately, you were correct. The high school recruiting hasn't been where it needs to be for years. That's a fact. Coaching changes should have taken place years ago. Also a fact. The roster is not deep enough. We are a day late and $1 short. Don't know if there are any quick fixes at this time. That's a very sobering comment, but it's true. Eventually, recruiting misses will catch up with you, especially offensive tackle and offensive line in general. Remember, FSU is starting 5 offensive linemen in their main starting group that they recruited from the portal, not the high school ranks, when Pettis is in the lineup. All 5. That is really crazy. From Expect More. You're a great analyst on Florida State. Thank you, by the way. Tony White interview says this game was first time the linebackers got picked on one-on-one. Okay. That was the third game this has happened to the linebackers. Does he not watch the tape? I thought the same thing with that comment. I'm like, they exposed Herring a couple of games ago on a route down the left sideline. They just did it on the right sideline. The middle of the field has been open a bunch. The linebackers are partially responsible for that. They're picking on the linebackers. I'm not really sure what Coach White was referring to there either. Parks and Fitness, got a clean house. Mike ain't the guy. As I said before this segment, some of these posts were very, very blunt. If Florida State can figure out the money situation, I think he would be gone. Kelsey Dickey, 7123, says, why Florida State rushing 3 at the quarterback when they already can't get any pressure with 4 and 5? That's a really good question. I'm going to do my best to explain this, but everybody has their own opinion. Penn State, Florida State, Texas, whatever it is, everybody will drop 8 occasionally, just trying to fool the quarterback and see if he's going to be a little overzealous, try to get a deflection, get an easy interception, something like that. But that's a Florida State base. It's different to have a base defense where you're dropping 7 and oftentimes, as you noted, 8 defenders. If there's no pressure and the quarterback has patience, even if there is a little bit of pressure, it's 3 guys going up against 5 or 6 in protection. That's not good odds. There's going to be a lot of completions. Now, can you tackle? Unfortunately, what Florida State does even worse than coverage is tackle. They're not good at any of tackling, rushing the passer, or coverage, especially in the middle of the field. The corners, and I think the safeties for the most part, there have been a few breaks, but they're not that bad. The linebackers are awful in coverage, and they get killed underneath, and that's a problem. So in theory, it should work, Kelsey. It should work. But right now, Florida State, not so much. Eric Lafruse, our defense looks like an average to a bad high school team. Oh, boy. Once again, Florida State's defense seems to be getting worse as the season progresses. Mind-boggling. Eric, I really can't disagree. Florida State has just fallen off. And here's the ironic part. To begin this show, I discussed how Florida State has a lot of injuries on offense. It's a mash unit. But the defense, while there's a few guys banged up, hasn't been as bad, at least from what we know. And that's, again, I trust zero injury reports coming from Florida State or probably any school. But the offense is more beat up than the defense. That's pretty safe. Yet the defense is the one that's playing worse. That is hard to fathom. Even without your best receiver for over half the game, 3 running backs out, your quarterback banged up, your right tackle out, one of your receivers didn't even play, your main guy at tight end, all injured, you still scored 31 when you weren't in sync. Yet the defense, with far fewer injuries, was hacked to bits. That's not a good sign. Florida State has problems on defense, and I'm starting to wonder if there's some kind of disconnect. I don't know what it is, but right now it's not just a talent issue. And they have issues like linebacker. The scheme does not fit the players they have. It doesn't. Tony White's got to adjust come heck or, high water. It's just, it is what it is. I doubt he will because coaches are stubborn. I've said that several times. But if he doesn't, the linebackers are just going to get annihilated all year. But to that end, the offense is still playing better than the defense. It's just incredibly mind-boggling. So you said it best. I don't understand why it's so bad, but we'll see if they can improve. Because if they don't, this season is going to come to a very, very bad end. So we'll talk more about it on Tuesday's show. But thank you very much for jumping in and checking it out here on Locked On Seminoles. Please like and subscribe. We will see you again soon on Locked On Seminoles.